I am male teen, have a younger teen sister who battled a rare form of leukemia from the age of 6, requiring ongoing medical attention for 5 years. Thankfully, she's been in good health for the past 3 years and has returned to a normal life. However, during her illness, my parents significantly prioritized her needs over mine. I often found myself shuffled between different family members or left to fend for myself. My own birthday was forgotten on several occasions, and Christmas celebrations revolved solely around her. I was constantly reminded to put effort into ensuring she had all the gifts and joys she could, under the guise that it could be her last. This dynamic left me feeling miserable and overlooked. I felt like I was merely a prop to cheer her up. Sometimes, my parents would go to great lengths to fulfill her wishes, even if it meant giving away items that were rightfully mine. For instance, they gave her my cherished beanbag chair and often pressured me to give her treats from school to lift her spirits. On the rare occasions when I received gifts, they paled in comparison to what she received. Last Christmas, while she got a new phone and Nintendo Switch skin, I received only clothes. Despite my efforts to save up and buy a gaming laptop, a significant milestone for me, my parents recently suggested that I should give it to my sister so she could play computer games with her friends. Their assumption that I should sacrifice something I worked hard for without hesitation angered me deeply. In a fit of frustration, I lashed out, expressing my resentment and offering to give away everything I owned since she apparently deserved it more. My outburst left my parents shocked and angry, but the tension remains palpable. While I still have my laptop, I can't help but wonder if I overreacted. Was I the one in the wrong for standing up for myself? In this situation, it's clear that my parents should have provided better support and balance for both their children, rather than consistently favoring one over the other. It's clear that your parents could have done a better job in ensuring your needs weren't completely overlooked, especially given the challenges you faced with your sister's illness. While it's understandable that her health was a top priority, yours should have been as well. I'm sorry that things unfolded the way they did, but you were absolutely right to stand your ground. This kind of family dynamic, where one child's needs overshadow the others, unfortunately, isn't uncommon. Now, it's crucial to assert your ownership over your laptop. Sit down with your parents and make it clear that this laptop is yours alone. You worked hard, saved up, and even sacrificed gifts from friends to afford it. It's not up for sharing, and if they want a shared laptop, they should buy one themselves. Furthermore, they need to change their attitude towards you immediately. Their neglect of your needs while prioritizing your sister's health was not only unfair but also negligent. As someone who has experienced being the shadow sibling of a miracle child, I understand the toll it can take. You've developed resilience and independence out of necessity, but now it's time to prioritize your own well-being. Creating some distance, both physically and emotionally, can be crucial for self-preservation and moving forward. On a different note, I sympathize with your situation regarding your parents' request to move in with you. While it's generous of you to agree, it's important to set boundaries. You've already made accommodations for them in your garage, and it's essential to stick to that arrangement. Communicate this clearly to your kids to avoid any confusion, especially since they've shown up to help with the move-in process. They had already arranged a hotel for one family, so we wouldn't be crowded. My parents were confused about why we were moving their stuff into the garage. I told them that was where they were staying. They said they thought they could move into my house since I had 5 bedrooms. I explained that I have 2 bedrooms, one being my office where I see clients, and the other is my private office and hobby room. The spare bedroom is mostly for my pets. They said they wanted to live in the house, not in the garage like phony. I said it was a take it or leave it situation. If they didn't like the garage, they could move into a nursing home or something. They're upset that they're living rent-free in a private guest house that is entirely up to code. Your parents seem spoiled. A rent-free, up-to-code apartment sounds pretty sweet. If it isn't good enough for them, they can make other arrangements. They want it to be in the main house for you to be their cook, maid, and carer. In the guest house, they have to fend for themselves. If your parents don't like living rent-free in your guest house, they can look for a retirement community. Regarding the issue of privacy, if you aren't in the habit of locking your exterior doors when you want privacy for yourself or your clients, I suggest you start. Tell your folks to text you first if they want to come over. No response means you're busy, and they stay out. My wife, 23, and I, 25, male, are having our first child together. She's currently 9 months pregnant and could give birth any time in the next couple of weeks. The only major fight we had throughout our pregnancy happened a couple of days ago, and it was about what we would name our kid. It all started when we found out the gender of the baby. We didn't do a gender reveal and decided to find out the gender at one of her checkups because we didn't want to spend time making 2 lists of names and then have to get rid of one after. So, after we found out we were having a boy, we sat down together and made a list. Almost all the names she suggested were normal until the one that caused me to write this post. She suggested we name our son Moon. She told me the name was from a movie she watched when she was younger and that it always stuck with her. I told her the name was a little out there, and he would get made fun of for it. She claimed he wouldn't, and we started going back and forth trying to decide whether to add the name to the list or not. Eventually, she agreed to keep the name off the list. We picked some that we liked, and I thought that was that. Later in her pregnancy, her mom threw a baby shower as it was her first grandchild, and my wife's pregnancy was almost over. We hadn't celebrated once. It was fine for the most part until we started to open the gifts. Most were normal baby things like diapers and bottles until we got to our mom's gift. My wife opened the gift bag and pulled out a blue handmade blanket. It seemed normal enough at first until my wife unfolded it, and lo and behold, there was the name Moon written on the blanket. I was angry, but I didn't want to cause a scene when I saw it, so I stayed quiet. After that reveal, family members came up to me and asked me about the name and why I hadn't told them. I didn't know what to say to them as I didn't have a clue about this either, and just had to embarrassingly tell my family that, which made me angry even more. Once the event ended and my wife and I went home, I started questioning her about the name. She got defensive and told me that it was a good name and that I was overreacting. I brought up the earlier points and told her that it was a stupid name for a kid and if she wanted to name something Moon so badly she could use the name for a dog. She got upset and called her mom to get her. After she left, she called me and told me she wouldn't return for a while. Everyone I've talked to about this has said I'm not the idiot, but now that my wife has been gone and I've been thinking about it, I feel like I could have handled the situation better. Am I the idiot? I think that naming your children after fictional characters is not a good idea. I know your wife liked that French animated movie, but she should consider that naming a baby is not the same as naming a pet. I hope the kid doesn't have Beavis and Butthead as classmates. I completely agree with this. That reminds me of Game of Thrones when people got angry that they named their child Daenerys before the books or TV show was finished, and they decided she would become a mad queen and ended up with a not-so-happy ending. That being said, has your wife done any research on this name? Mun means breasts in Japanese. Does she even like your kid? Opie should send a text to Grandma with that little tidbit of information. Use Grandma to his advantage like his wife did. There is no way Grandma wants her grandson named breasts. This is one of those 2 yeses, 1 no situations. You didn't have 2 yeses, but your wife proceeded as though you did, even going behind your back to do so. Brilliant idea, Op. Text the name translations to Grandma and your wife. She opened the argument to the family. Let the weight of public opinion fall upon her. Moon, you reverser. Oh, and post it on social media. I am 24-year-old male. Have always been the black sheep of my family. I'm more quiet and reserved than my siblings and wasn't as interested in sports as them. My youngest brother, Sam, is a big athlete, and my parents' favoritism is blatant. He can do whatever he wants, blame me, and my parents just believe him and punish me. For example, he took our dad's truck for a joyride and hit something, leaving a massive dent in the door. He blamed me, and I was grounded, and my graduation party was canceled. While I was at college, the truth came out, and Sam got no punishment. Or when he ruined my mom's fabric scissors. I was out with a friend when it happened, but I still got grounded because Sam said that I ruined them. I could go on, but it always boils down to Sam messing something up, blaming me, and I get punished. After graduating, I moved to the other side of the country for art school, and I never visited home. I only kept in contact with my other brother, Will, and we have a good relationship. Recently, I got a new job that moved me close to home, and I told Will about it. My mom then contacted me and said we should all get together to celebrate. I was hesitant, but my mom said we'd go to my favorite restaurant, and they'd pay. Plus, it would be the first time seeing Will in person in 2 years, so I accepted it. Sam still lives with our parents, and it was immediately apparent he hadn't changed much in the past 6 years. He's coasting off his track scholarship and doesn't seem to care much about anything. Anyways, on the dinner day, Sam starts complaining about the restaurant choice and saying he'd rather not go. After some back and forth between our parents and him, they asked if we could go somewhere else. I told them no, they can go somewhere else to coddle him. They're golden boy, but I came here for that restaurant and I was going to enjoy the food. I wanted. Sam called me pathetic and childish for not compromising. I saw red after that. I told him he was the pathetic one. He's a lazy idiot who can't take an ounce of responsibility and couldn't last a week without her parents. My mom told me off, saying I was being nasty about what was supposed to be a happy day. And I told her I hadn't felt happiness around the three of them since I was a kid. My dad called me a brat and demanded I apologize. I told him to screw off and that he doesn't have a shred of integrity after canceling my graduation party and never apologizing after he found out it was Sam. My mom tried to defend him, but Sam said I was just being an idiot because they weren't impressed enough I was a starving artist. I then told them all to screw off and left. I called Will and stayed with him until my flight on Wednesday. He told me I was right and justified, but it was harsh of me to say all that. He isn't asking me to apologize, but he did tell me our mom hasn't left her room since it happened. Am I the idiot? Good for you for finally standing up to them. Maybe your mom is currently having an epiphany about how crappy they've been towards you. Nice. You've got Will in your corner. A bit of reality never hurt anyone. They may need it to start seeing how the golden child really is. I really feel like they don't respect you at all compared to Sam. It's hard not to go off the handle for the summation of decades of unfair treatment. It wasn't nice. And it might not have been right, but what did they honestly expect? Maybe your mom is currently having an epiphany. Mom is not having an epiphany. Mom is wallowing in self-pity and formulating a plan to be the victim in this. Go no contact with everyone but Will. Your family's favoritism was just pure evil. I would suggest some counseling to ease your pain. Best wishes for your future, be the best you can be. Screw your brother and your enabling parents, they're not worth losing sleep over. This happened 2 months ago. So I am 21-year-old female. Was supposed to go to a zoo with my dad and sister, 23. The UV index was supposed to be pretty high that day, so I warned my sister to bring sunscreen. The day came, she wore a tank top and hadn't applied or brought sunscreen. I offered to let her apply my body sunscreen before we left, but she refused and said that it wasn't necessary. I offered to let her bring it in her bag, but she didn't want to carry it around. I wore long sleeves, so I only brought my face sunscreen to the zoo. Halfway through the day, she started getting burned and wanted sunscreen. I told her, sorry, no. This sunscreen is from Korea and is meant for the face, so it's more expensive than body sunscreen. I offered her my flannel. I brought it for the evening, but it was still quite hot then, and she refused, so she ended up getting burned. She thinks it's my fault because I had sunscreen and refused to share. I think it's her fault because I warned her before she left, offered to let her use my sunscreen at home, and offered her a way to cover her back and arms. This is not the first time she forgot something and expected me to fix it. Am I the idiot? Sunscreen is only important if you don't want to get burned. Your sister opted not to have sunscreen. They sell sunscreen at the zoo, though perhaps a little more expensive. And I bet it's not as expensive as the imported facial cream you still brought after refusing to use sunscreen at first, refusing to put it in a bag just in case, choosing not to wear sun-appropriate clothes, and refusing to take your long-sleeve shirt. Her solution is the one that cost you the most in price and inconvenience and lets her have no responsibility. Nope. She had options, was given options repeatedly, and even refused to buy some on her own. She's the idiot. At the end of the day, this is a grown woman blaming others for the consequences of her own actions. This will probably be unpopular, but everyone's the idiot here. Yes, your sister is a bit. Skin cancer is no joke, And I'm not exaggerating when I say that that day at the zoo could have been the trigger for even one of her skin cells mutating and going cancerous in the future. I get where you're coming from with the product being expensive. I also use a number of South Korean products, but last month when my partner forgot to put on SPF, I didn't hesitate to whip mine out and get him protected because I care more about his physical well-being than a consumable product.